these days, we all know there's Uber, Lyft, other rideshare companies. And you might think that you're in a private car, and so being driven by just another private person, and therefore there's no difference between being involved in a crash with an Uber and a Lyft driver versus being involved in just a crash involving private passenger vehicles, two private drivers. But there is a big difference. So one of the things to know is that Uber and Lyft provide mandatory insurance that is much greater than an individual private passenger vehicle. For instance, in Colorado, you can be street legal on the road if you have $25,000 worth of liability coverage. That means if you hurt somebody, you have up to $25,000 to pay for what you caused to them. Uber and Lyft, if the application is engaged and they have a passenger in the vehicle, and you might be that passenger, or you might be struck by an Uber who has a passenger, they have $1 million minimum in coverage. That's a substantial difference in terms of your ability to recover. That also means they have a lot more at risk, and that means they're going to defend the case more aggressively to try to save themselves that money. And so you're going to be up in a situation where you're much closer to a defense that you might see in a commercial truck case than in just a private passenger case. One of the things that has to be determined with Uber drivers is let's say there's an Uber sticker in the window or a Lyft little sign in the front. That doesn't tell us the story about what sort of insurance is available for that particular vehicle, because there's kind of three different stages. If you drive for Lyft, but you don't have the application turned on, they don't provide any additional coverage beyond what that private passenger, and that is really just a private passenger on private passenger crash. If they have the application on, but no passenger in the vehicle, let's say they're going to pick up a passenger, then there's a different level of insurance. And then the highest level of insurance that they mandate and provide is if they have a passenger in the vehicle at the time. And so it's important for us to learn through the investigation what was the status of that driver actually, so that we know what sort of insurance we're dealing with. In addition to that, Ubers are any for-hire vehicle is considered a common carrier, and they have a higher duty of care that's owed to their passengers than if you and I are just riding in a car together. And so we want to make sure that we're holding them to that higher standard. And the other thing about Uber and Lyft is that, every time they update that application and you update it on your phone and you agree to their terms, one of the terms that they are trying to get you to agree to is arbitration, to take your case out of the court system if you're a passenger and you're involved in a crash with an Uber driver. If you're a passenger, they can't do that if you're driving down the road and you're not in their car. But what they try to do is they say, if you're a passenger, that you're waiving your right to go to court against them. And we've been very successful in demonstrating that those sorts of mandatory arbitration agreements may not be binding. And it's important to have lawyers who have a track record of success in cases against these ride shares, because there's a sophisticated contract actually that also has to be addressed in terms of what their liabilities are, where you can go to recover for them, whether you just have to sue the driver or whether you could bring a claim in court against Uber. So it becomes quite a complex set of circumstances. And I would say, again, that being involved in a vehicle crash where there's an Uber or a Lyft is much more similar to a commercial vehicle crash than a private passenger crash. And sometimes you might see the Uber sticker and you don't even know, right? If you see the Uber sticker, you need to make sure that you've told your lawyer, hey, I got to tell you, I saw an Uber sticker in that car, or a Lyft sticker, because that's going to warrant this different level of examination to try to find out what the status of the Uber is. We all know that if you are on those ride shares, you can look on your phone and you can see the trips. The drivers all have that too. And so we can actually subpoena that information and see what their status was at the time of your crash, which may impact dramatically the amount of insurance available.